Okay, so on this question, they're giving us a quadratic function, an x squared function right here. And they're asking us for the vertex, the x value, and the y value of the intercepts, okay? So let's bring it down here. So f of x is the same as y. I don't know if I've said that before, but function like f of x, g of x, h of x, those are just y. Those are the same as y. This is y equals 4x squared minus 25. Okay, so they're asking us to find the vertex. The vertex means the center of the U shape, right? If we were to graph this thing, it would be a U shape, a parabola, and it would have a center. And how do you find the center, the vertex of the parabola? Well, remember we have the magic formula. X is negative b over 2a. That's how we find the center, the vertex. X is negative b over 2a. Now, what are a and b and c? Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to add there's really nothing in the middle. And then there's the minus 25. You see how it's like having 0x in the middle. You don't have to write 0x. But my point is I want you to see that the A is 4 and the B is 0. It's not the 25 or the negative 25. That's actually C, in the ABC, because they're missing the middle term on this. The middle term is regular x, and that's missing. You don't have to write in a 0x. You can just say, hey, the B is 0, and that's all good. Is that making sense what I'm doing there? So it should be x squared first, then regular x, then the plain number at the back that has no x at all. So it's x squared x, no x. And since the x in the middle is missing, it's just 0. So notice how I identify A, B, and C, and I circle A and B, specifically because I need those. All right, so here we go. I'm going to plug those in. So how do we do it? It's negative B. What is B? Well, 0. Over 2 times A. What is A? 4. So I get negative 0 over 8. What is 0 over negative 0? That's just 0, right? How much money do you have? I have negative 0. Right? It's just 0. And what is 0 divided by 8? Well, it's just 0, right? You take 0 candy bars and divide among 8 kids, they get no candy. 0 is just 0. So x is 0. So that's the x value. Now, how do we get the y value? We plug it in, don't we? Plug in x equals 0 to find y. Plug in where? In the original equation. Just grab it right here. Y equals, now remember when you plug in, you got to put parentheses around what you're plugging in. That's important. These little things I'm doing matter. We got to make sure you put parentheses around it. So I put parentheses around the 0 and plugged it in. And so what do we get then? Well, that's just going to be 0 minus 25. So y equals minus 25. So therefore, we've got it. The vertex, the center of the parabola, is x is 0, y is minus 25. That's the x and the y that we just found. 0, minus 25. So it's 0 minus 25, the x value and the y value for the center. And then it comes down and says, okay, now find the x value of the largest x-intercept. How do we do that? How do we find the x value of the largest x-intercept? Well, you could graph the whole thing. I don't know if we really want to do that. Yeah, I don't really want to bother with graphing it. I'm just going to come down and show you how you find x-intercepts. So to find an x-intercept, line there. So to find an x-intercept, what do? Well, remember, it's been a while since we've done intercepts. To find intercepts, you always make the opposite letter 0. So to find an x-intercept, I'm going to plug in y equals 0 and solve. And then in a minute, to find a y-intercept, I'm going to plug in x equals 0 and solve. You always plug in the opposite letter is 0. So here we go. So I'm going to take the equation, which they've given me, which is y equals 4x squared minus 25. And I'm going to grab that 0 and put it right on the left side for y. Plugging in y is 0 there. Okay. So now we need to solve for x. So how do we solve that equation for x? What do we do? Let me check real quick if they're going to allow decimals or not on this one. I got to get a new one that has a decimal. I got 2 in a row that have whole numbers. Let me get one that has a decimal here. Okay, there we go. So what do they do there? Yeah, they take a decimal. Okay. All right. So how do we solve for x? What are we going to do? Well, basically, you've got to get x alone. So I'm going to add 25 to both sides. Like this. Okay. All right, and then divide by 4. Boom. And at this point, we get 25 over 4. Right? So I get the x squared alone. And then how do you turn that into just regular x? Remember what we do? Put the root over both sides. You seen that before? Where you put the root over both sides like that? Is that making sense right there? You just put that root over both sides. And well, I'm kind of hesitating on which way to show you here. Because yeah, that's probably the best way. You can just do that. And when you do that though, you've got to go plus or minus. I don't know if you've seen this trick before, but when you put a root on, there's actually 2 possible answers, plus or minus. So, okay, so then what does that become? This is plus or minus. And what is the square root of 25 over 4? It's 5 over 2, isn't it? You know, probably I should just gone to a decimal. Let me go back here. This would be 6.25. Let's just go to decimals. And the square root of that will be 2.5. Plus or minus 2.5. Yeah, just go to decimal. So you should get 25 over 4 is 6.25, and then square root, you get 2.5. No more square root, right? Once you square root, the root vanishes. So it's plus or minus. Oh, and there's no more square on the x here either. So that's x equals plus or minus 2.5. So that is what they're looking for. Now, so there's 2 values here. The largest one is the positive 2.5. The smallest one is the negative 2.5. And up here, they ask for, notice, the largest. So that'd be 2.5 on that. Now, having said this, there's another way. I don't know if you guys are looking at that film like, whoa, didn't we do this different way before? We have. Let me show the other way. You can do it either way you want. Let me go back here. You might prefer this. Let me show you. You might be saying, Mr. Didn't we do like parentheses? We did. You can do the double parentheses instead. I'll say, or you can do it this way. Remember this, like 2x times 2x makes 4x squared? Remember that kind of thing? And then the back, 5 times 5 makes negative 25. You got to get to, you get a 1 minus and 1 plus to make negative 25. Remember all that? And then we set each one equal to their own 0. So 2x minus 5 equals 0 and 2x plus 5 equals 0. Right? Let me get this out of the way. Then you solve each one. You add 5 to both sides. Boom.
2x is 5 divided by 2. Guess what 5 divided by 2 is? 2.5, same answer. On the other side, subtract 5 from both sides, boom. 2x is minus 5 divided by 2, boom. Guess what that is? Minus 2. So you're going to get the same two answers as I got this way. And they only want the larger one. They only want the positive 2.5. For whatever reason, they're only asking for the larger one. So you can do it either way. You can do the parenthesis factoring thing and then set each part equal to 0, which we've done before. Or I'm giving you another way where you can just get the x squared alone and put the root on both sides. And don't forget to put plus or minus. Get the two answers. So that's the X-intercept. Last thing, we've got to find the Y-intercept. How do we find a Y-intercept? Well, remember, for an X-intercept, you plug in Y0. So then for a Y-intercept, you plug in X0. Let's do it. So this will be a lot easier. Find a Y-intercept. So what do? Plug in X0. Getting the hang of that? We always just plug in the opposite letter 0 when we're finding an intercept. So I grabbed the original equation again, which was y equals 4x squared minus 25, right? Yeah, 4x squared minus 25. And now I'm going to plug in x equals 0. So I grab that 0, pop it in right there for x. And so this drops out. I get y is minus 25. There we go. So the y value is minus 25. So we found out the important things about this U-shaped graph without ever graphing the U-shape. We found the intercepts. And so there we go.